here. 1 is live. 2 is live. Oh, I got a notification. They're streaming. They working okay? All right, let's see how long it takes to get someone in there. Still connecting to YouTube, or did it work? Hey guys, just give us a second, get some people online. What's that? That's weird. Nothing I can do about it. Does audio sound okay? Everything sounding good? What's up, Jesse? Hey, Henry. Ooh, I see Olaf. All right, well, hopefully this is working okay. Looks like YouTube working okay. Do you have YouTube open, Preston? Can I view YouTube? Give me one more second, guys, and I will go over the new modes and other things in the configurator. And answer some questions. Hey, Sean. No. Can you pause? All right, cool. All right, guys, I got your chats up there. All right, so people had a lot of questions about the modes and some other things on the configurator. So I figured I would do a quick live stream and then I'll edit it in a little bit. I'll edit it a little bit and then use it to do a YouTube video for anyone else that has questions, and then hopefully we'll write it up and put it on the websites as well, so everyone knows what's going on. So I'm going to go over a couple things. One, I'm going to download the configurator real quick on Windows and show you how to run it, and then show you where to get the latest firmware. And then I'm going to go over the modes and the filter settings and just go over the new builds. So we've been working overtime. Myself, my son, and Artie, and a bunch of other guys have been working nonstop to try and get Raceflight as bug-free as possible and get the features that everyone's been wanting for some time in there, and hopefully get it to the point where we can release a good, solid product without any issues. I think we've done a pretty good job of it so far. We don't know of any bugs that are in the system right now. It's flying amazing. Best flying we've seen yet. The tunes are slightly off. We just released a new version with some better tunes. You still might need to tune again because we're running at true 32 kilohertz now. The older builds, you know, when I checked them, they weren't running at 32 kilohertz. We had some that were, some that weren't. We put stuff in place to make sure that we're always running at that speed, and that if we're skipping gyro cycles or anything like that, we know. So we can guarantee that we're going to have your quadcopter performing the best performance it can. The reason 32 kilohertz is important is we have never successfully been able to remove all prop wash without going 32 kilohertz. With 32 kilohertz on a quad that's powerful enough, we can literally go in and directly into prop wash, and it can respond quick enough with the proper tune that you don't even feel the prop wash. Usually when we're doing testing, we're doing everything we can to feel prop wash to see if we can get rid of it completely, and that's always our goal on a quadcopter. What that means is basically I should be able to go full throttle and then whip right back around full 180 into prop wash. I shouldn't feel anything. I should be able to go full 180, drop the throttle, whip around, and then full throttle again, not feel anything. I should be able to drop straight down into prop wash without feeling anything. I think guys naturally are used to, you know, dropping at an angle, so they're avoiding the prop wash, things like that. That's the stuff we're testing when we're doing these builds to try and get the quad as perfect as possible, and to know, you know, get the basically like the quad's flying magically through air. Like air doesn't exist, like it's almost in space. So that's what we've been doing. We've been optimizing and adding field features. All the Trana stuff, Trana shouldn't be giving you those warnings anymore. Let us know if it does on the new stuff. The telemetry should be working good on it. We've been also adding OSD stuff for upcoming boards we're working on, we're testing. as well as you can use the OSD stuff with the minimum OSD setup. So anyone with a minimum OSD can have the full OSD that the upcoming board is going to have as well. We fixed everything that we've been told of as a bug. As of right now, I do not know of any problems with Raceflight. So if you do find them, we have a GitHub page up for issues. Just Google Raceflight 1 GitHub issues, or Google Raceflight 1 GitHub and click on issues. Or you can always join us in our Slack and let us know what's going on. But we're trying our best to get as perfect of firmware as possible. So let's go over this real quick, and I'll show you guys how to do it right now. So I'm going to show you how to download it. So the stable is always going to be on raceflight.com/download. So if you want one that's been really tested by everyone, that's a recommended one. Right now, if we go to raceflight.com/download, what you're going to see is 324. 324. This one doesn't have all the new fixes and the new everything, but this one's been run long enough by enough people that we're very confident that it should give you a good flying experience. It's not going to be the most prop wash free. It's not going to fly the best. It's not going to have every single thing fixed in it, but it is stable right now. Our hope is this version I'm going to show you next is going to be the next version up here, because over the last 2 weeks we've been busting our butt trying to get it to the point where it works really well. I think the last step now is more work on tuning than anything, to get a good base tune and get one where everyone's happy. If you go to /beta instead of /download, you're going to get the latest version. So we have a new configurator for 18, and we're going to have a new firmware for 17. A little secret I'll tell you, and do this at your own risk, but if you rub the monkeys, you can actually download pre-releases before we're even letting people beta test them. Now, these are pretty, be very cautious if you ever do this, because they haven't been tested by many people at all. They've been tested by us in-house, but we haven't given them out to anyone to test. These beta builds, we have the alpha team that tests them. So they've been tested somewhat before we release them to the public in general. I mean, we might do some small bug fixes or whatever, but in general, they've been tested. So what you want to do is you want to download both the firmware here and the configurator that works for your system. So I'm going to go ahead and download this firmware. Should be downloading. Click it again. Oh, it didn't get my click the first time. And I'm on Windows 64, so I'm going to download this as well. So this will go ahead and download. While that's happening, I'll see if there's any questions you guys have. So someone asked, Coupa and CRSF telemetry working together or not? Yes, Coupa works fine with Crossfire telemetry. It should all work fine. Telemetry won't work while you're actually in Coupa mode if you're using RX3. If you're using TX3, it should work. So I believe it does work even there. Yeah, Preston's correcting me, but he's wrong. So if you're using TX3 for telemetry channel and you're using TX1 for your RX channel, channel 1, channel 2 on Crossfire, Coupa should work fine. They shouldn't even lose telemetry. Coupa does work at 32 kilohertz now, which is a big leap forward because it did not before, because it uses the accelerometer, so it wasn't working at 32 kilohertz. It does now. We also added a new Coupa mode, and I'm going to show you that as well. Here, let's go back to installing this. Now it's downloaded. So you get this file, and you basically just copy this file to wherever you want to install it. So we'll put it in temp for now. So once I've copied that file, and hopefully you guys can see this, I know it's a little small, but you just want to right click and pick extract all. And you can extract it into whatever folder you want to call it. Now this is a good thing, a neat trick, because it names the folder whatever you want. So I know this is version 418, the configurator. So I can always keep the older ones if for some reason I'm running multiple versions. You want to match the configurator with your firmware version. So now you just go in here and you run the executable. This is the same on Mac in general. Now it's going to give you a warning. You say run anyways. You say more info and then click run anyways, and it will run it. Let me close the one I have open. On a Mac, you're going to get a security warning too. You're going to have to go to settings and pick allow run. The reason this is because it's a brand new build that the virus scanners don't know about. When we get to version 1, we'll get it certified and all that good stuff. But for now, this is what you have to put up with. Someone's asking about the Maytech VTX Smart Port. Trappy actually did a post about this today. So apparently Betaflight had implemented his protocol incorrectly, and that's one of the reasons a lot of the AKK and others aren't working. The Maytech one I can't say specifically isn't working, but what happened with Smart Audio is we followed the specifications to the letter. We implemented them just like Trappy said, so they work perfectly. Apparently Betaflight was actually sending 2 stop bits instead of 1 stop bit or something along those lines. And so when they used the source code of Betaflight to make the protocol was off, and that's why we have incompatibility. So if you have hardware that's not working, then for sure just let us know in the issues, and we'll try and get it working if we can get our hands on it. The Lua script is being worked on for Tyrannus as well. And so all that stuff should be working. We're going to work on speeding up Tyrannus. And we're have some new stuff happening with Tyrannus too that is actually pretty interesting. But we're doing our best to get everything implemented and speed up the Tyrannus. And we're going to not do it the way we're doing it. We're going to do cached menus and stuff. It'll be a lot faster. So once you open this, you can plug in your flight controller. And we'll flash it real quick while you're on there. So you plug in your flight controller. It's going to come up with this screen, welcome pilot. We're going to hit cancel here and click up here, update firmware. Now, the safe thing to do here is to reboot in a DFU mode. What that does is it lets us overwrite the bootloader. Our bootloader doesn't change that often, but for now, it's a good idea to overwrite it. So we're going to pick that. And then it's gonna just go automatically in DFU mode, and then we're just gonna pick the firmware file we just downloaded. I'll run it from here just because it's the same file. So you just wait for that to download. If you have older firmware, the new configurator should update it just fine. Yes, you just pick the same thing, reboot into DFU, and pick that file. And it's flashing, and I'll read, see if there's any questions. So far, I think we're pretty good. And I really want you guys to, test this. See if you can find any bugs. Help us get to the next version of Raceflight. We're trying to get to that stable final, and I need your guys' help to test and let us know if there's problems. And the best place is Slack. You can also use Facebook to communicate with us and let us know what's going on. Keep in mind the tunes may not translate because the older builds aren't running as well as these. What's happening is the new builds are running more efficiently, which is making P stronger. They're running higher cycles, like 32 kilohertz, which is making P and the other bits stronger. So the tunes don't transfer exactly. One cool thing about this, though, is everyone loved 1011. And that was one version that was running at 32 kilohertz, so it was very easy for us to translate that tune into the new version. So anyone who loved 1011 or RC12, the tune is built into our configurator on this new version. So I'll show you how to select that, but that is a good thing. You can use the same exact tune, and Nick Willard even signed off on it as flying better than RC11, RC12. So it should fly great. For anyone that likes that tune, you can upgrade now and get all the features like crossfire and that kind of stuff. All right, it's finishing up the flash now. And once it does, one thing you'll notice is it goes back to the update screen. This is because we replaced the bootloader. So to fix this, we're going to unplug the flight controller. You want to wait 10 seconds because we want to give it time to discharge the capacitors. And then we are going to plug it back in. Once you do this, it should connect fine and give you this welcome screen. Now, there's videos already on the internet how to do all this, so I'm going to skip this. Schizo did an awesome video. It's on the Rotor Riot channel. But I'm going to go ahead and skip this for now to show you. So here's the new configurator look. We're changing it slightly. One thing we did is we went to this new switch system, which is pretty cool. All you'd have to do is check the box, and then it'll ask you to put a switch in one position and one in the other. In fact, maybe Preston will bring me over a quad that I can do that on with the radio in a minute. But it should automatically detect the switch you're flicking. If you want to do it the old way, you can click this button over here underneath Launch Wizard, and you still have the old way to do it. So for most people, I think the new way is the best way to go. It's really easy. It works really well, but there might be a few people that have, like, you know, different switch setup on their radio, on their Tyrannus, and they need to do something more special. Someone's asking about 32-bit. Right now, I mean, we're waiting for Stefan to implement dshot commands on 32-bit. Once that's implemented, at least most of the wizard stuff will work, like changing the motor direction. I tested recently. It's not working yet. It does work in BL-Heli-S, which is even weirder. But it doesn't work in BL-Heli-32. Pass-through, we have a solution for that too. We're working on this week, so you can update them as well. But for most people, if we get dshot commands, the wizard should work flawlessly. I think Preston went to give me a remote, and I unplugged this prematurely. So here you go. Here's your modes screen. And I'll go over what these modes do, and you guys ask questions if I don't explain it properly. So basically, the first mode is self-explanatory. This is how you arm your quad. So you can put that on a switch. Here, hold on. I'll do that in a second. The next mode is acro level, which is basically an auto level mode. But that one is more like horizon mode. So it lets you have more control over the quad. You can actually do flips and rolls. The next mode is logging. You can put the logging on a switch. So only when you flick the switch, it starts logging. And when you unflick the switch, it stops. LED mode, basically it switches the mode of your LEDs. We have like Night Rider mode and all that kind of stuff. There's all kinds of fancy modes. There's ones that use accelerometer and all that. So that switches in between them every time you flick the switch. Direct mode, what that does is it makes RC smoothing 0. So you can either enable direct mode here, or you can set your RC smoothing to 0. What RC smoothing is it tries to smooth your controls when you move your sticks. So if you're having bounce back, adding smoothing will help you with that. Betaflight does have smoothing in theirs, so if you have less bounce back with Betaflight, this could be one of the reasons. Everyone wants that amazing feel where you're at one with your controller and your quad does exactly what you tell it. But keep in mind, when you flick your switch, if they bounce a little, your quad's doing exactly what you tell it. And some of the pros like John and Johnny and all those guys, they're more used to not letting their sticks bounce at the end of the cycle, and they smooth into it. So the RC smoothing just kind of might help you out with that to get a little smoother, a little less bouncy in the center, and just make your movements a little smoother. The next mode is brain drain. This is one people ask a lot about, and I always say the same thing: try it and see if you like it. It changes the way the flight controller operates. It uses error instead of measurement. It does some different tweaks. The flight controller kind of feels like it gives you a little kick when you go around a corner. Some people just happen to like it, and so that's why we have it in here. So it's just something you really need to try to see if that's something you like. So the next one is profile 3. This lets you, when you flick the switch, it changes to profile 3. Keep in mind, you have to disarm to enable the profile to start, and then arm again, because it actually reboots the flight controller, because our profiles like reload everything on the flight controller. So you can do all kinds of, basically change all the filters and the PIDs and everything. So it won't change profiles in the air. You have to land and disarm. The next one is preload. So you will notice when you start your quad, when you arm your quad on the ground, we don't have, like, eye doesn't keep wandering and the motor spin faster and faster. So the reason that is because we don't allow full I term until you go above, I think, 20% throttle. So what preload does is it essentially it removes this restriction. So once you hit 20% throttle, this mode would engage either way, but this is a way to engage it before that. The reason you'd want to do that is you can actually arm your quad, tilt it at almost 45 degrees, let go of the controls, and it's going to stay at that angle on the ground. So that allows you to get those full speed launches, you know, letting the flight controller just hold that angle sitting there so you pretty much can full throttle and keep that perfect launch. So you can actually put that with your arm switch if you wanted to. It doesn't need to be on a separate switch. So every time you arm, it enables this mode. But just keep in mind that you will get wind up on the ground. So like if you leave your quad sitting there with preload mode enabled forever, the motors are gonna spin faster and faster, and that's the reason we don't latch that ordinarily. So so you can just put that on your arm switch if you want to be able to always be able to launch at a full angle. The next mode is the auto KI. What that does is as you ramp your sticks faster, like full stick, it lowers KI. Some people like this in freestyle. It kind of helps with bounce back and some other things. So again, this is something that you're just going to have to try it and see if you like it. But I know some guys like it, and that's why we have it in there. Level mode does exactly what it says. It makes your quad auto level. You can't do rolls. It'll never let you flip over. That's what level mode does. The fail-safe mode. Fail-safe, it just does what it says. It triggers the fail-safe. The next mode is the buzzer mode. That just beeps your buzzer when you have it connected to the buzzer. The next mode is something we've fixed recently, which people have been asking us to fix, is the LED color mode. This now allows you to change your LED colors every time you flick the switch. So if you're at a race and you need a certain color LEDs, that does work now. The VTX on mode is the next mode. That one, well, if your VTX is set to go into pit mode all the time, which I highly recommend because it is nice to be able to work on your quads without blowing out your friends at races. It enables the VTX, it gets it out of pit mode when you flick that switch. So it's great to have that on a separate switch, or you can have it on your arm switch. Either way, so now you can plug in your quad and not worry about blowing out your friend. The next one is profile 2. It's pretty self-explanatory. It selects the second profile. Koopa mode, everyone knows about, hopefully. If you didn't, watch our videos on YouTube, but it will flip over your quad if you get stuck upside down. I'm going to go over that real quick too. We've changed that and it works way better. The last mode is motor beep. This uses dshot commands to actually beep your motor, so you no longer need a buzzer. You flick your switch, the motors will start beeping. Another thing, it uses dshot commands, but notice that you do not need to use dshot. You can still use multi-shot, which we all love, but it just will automatically switch to dshot just for the beeping and then switch back to multi-shot when it's done. So it works pretty well that way. So going back to Koopa mode, we now have different styles of Koopa mode. We have automatic 2-motor and manual 2-motor. So no longer do we allow all the motors to spin. That's too hard on our quads and our hardware. We don't need it. So what automatic 2-motor mode does is it tries to use 1 or 2 motors, whatever it needs, sometimes even 3, the ones that are unstuck to flip it. It can tell by the orientation, the grass, hopefully, which motors needs to spin. It uses basically the higher up motors will spin and the lower ones will not. What's cool about it though is you can still use your sticks in this mode. So if it doesn't seem to be flipping over correctly, you can wiggle your sticks left, right, front, backwards to actually give it more power in those directions to flip it over. If you don't want to automatic made it at all, you can use manual mode. Manual mode will stay enabled for an unlimited amount of time. And it will let you just move your sticks and it will go the direction you move your sticks. So some guys like that if they're against the wall or whatever. They don't want automatic, they just want to do it manually, and you can. But it gives you both those options. And hopefully this will be less damaging on hardware. While we're over here, always double arm does what it says. Every time you arm your quad, you have to flick the switch twice. If you want to make it so you can throw your quad up in the air and arm in the air, or disarm and rearm in the air, anything like that, you should put this to, you should turn this off. When you turn this off, the first time you have to double arm, which usually I set it on the race line and I double arm to make sure it flies. After that, it's only a single arm. Now, keep in mind, it calibrates everything on the first arm. So once everything is calibrated on that double arm, from then on, you could throw it up in the air and arm it, which we have done, and it will arm mid-air. It doesn't have to be still from that point forward. Let's see. I think everything else here is probably self-explanatory. I can go over it really quickly. Bind spectrum lets you bind a spectrum receiver. And test motors is a good way to find a bad motor. You can run the test and see which one has the highest score if you suspect the motor's bad. Along with the LEDs, the way you set up LEDs is you pick the amount of LEDs on your string, and then you can pick the mode. And you can put it on a switch. We have on, to, and if you do that, then it'll cycle through some colors, or you can set your colors here. We'll have to do another video to show you how to set up LEDs properly. Let's go to PID tuning. Now, on PID tuning, here's some things we were talking about. One, this is RC smoothing. You could set this up or down depending on how much smoothing you want on your quad. Usually for 3 style, about 33 works pretty well. This is something we're going to probably work on more in the future, but to get some better smoothing, some more intelligent smoothing, but it works decently now. ESC smoothing just removes jitter from the ESC signal. So if you can try that and see if it helps. If you have a noisier setup, it might help doing that. Someone said our turbo mode is just like Betaflight. I don't believe they have the automatic version. They only have the manual. So that's the difference. These limit settings, people ask about these. In general, you do not need to change these limits. They are... The one limit maybe you want to change is the KD filtering limit. Basically, these do exactly what they say. Is this is how much KD is allowed to act. This is how much KI is allowed to act. The roll KD filtering is how filtered we filter D. It's at 55 now in the stock tune, like 234. The more clean quads, what's that? Oh, 324. Sorry. The more clean quads, you can raise this higher and maybe get a little more feel. The deadband is how much deadband you have in the middle of your sticks. If your motor, if you see your sticks dancing around, if you look at RC data, you might want to increase this. CG adjustment is another big one. Most quads, it's set to 0 by default, but most quads might like around 90 or 95. If you're noticing your quads nosing up in maneuvers and stuff, try lowering this. You can start at 99 and work your way down to see if it gets better. A lot of quads, especially stretch X's, seem to like 90. What that does is it basically balances your quad, balances your motors. The next thing is, let me go over these quick change PID levels. If you go here now, you can see we have different tunes. This is the RC12 tune that we're talking about. And you see that changes not only the PIDs, but also the filter settings to match that tune. As time goes on, we're going to add tunes for every one of our own hardware. So this will basically have lots of changes here for different tunes for different hardware. The default should be a relatively good tune for most quads, and then you're welcome to try other tunes to see if it flies better. And you can see it changes these PIDs. If you want to see the PIDs in the old scale, click this button and you can see them in the old scale, and you can even edit them in the old scale. The scale is made so you can adjust by 1 at a time. So if I wanted to fix roll integral, I would just raise it 1 to 30, and that should have somewhat of an impact. That the reason we went to the scale is 1 point gives an impact on your quads. Someone asked CG adjustments, should they start adjusting from 99 or 0.99? It is 99. You don't need a decimal place for it. The next thing I'll go over, these are the rates. You can, obviously choose KISS rates, Betaflight rates, or old rates or new rates for the scale, and you can set them in here. Just be careful that you read what the text says and do them in the right order if you're choosing like KISS or something. The next thing is the filtering. We have two different types of filters. They have now been moved to similar scales. It was very confusing before because we were just having the one filter in for testing. But when you choose your filter, you have these roll filter levels, pitch filter levels. What that does is essentially how aggressive the filter should be. The higher this number, the more it filters. The more it's going to ignore information it thinks is potentially bad. That's how our filters work. They're automatic. They're looking for patterns. They're looking for information that they do not think is correct, that lie outside, and they try and figure out what the information should be in layman's terms. So the higher you make this number, the more it should filter. The nice thing about these filters is they're real time and we don't lose data. So it works the same thing with dynamic noisy. If you raise this number up now, it's going to filter more. The scale on this is between 20 and 100, I believe. So anywhere between that should work. I suggest raising it 5 points at a time. I like the dynamic filter the best. It lets more noise through, but it feels the best for me. Some guys might like the dynamic noisy. It overfilters a little bit more. Maybe it's more like a Betaflight overfiltered feel. I can't say exactly, but if your hardware is going bad or you have a noisier build or whatever, dynamic noisy might be better for you. So try them both ways. Then I recommend leaving the roll wrap alone. This is set based on your sensors. You can play with it. It really shouldn't need to be changed because everyone uses the same gyro more or less, and that's our sensor. But you can just increase this. So right now I have it on dynamic. If you notice, it's at 60 right now with the default on dynamic. But if I go to the RC12 tune, you can see it drops significantly to 35 because this lets through a lot more noise. One thing I highly recommend is don't look at your gyros and expect them to be smooth. If your gyros are smooth, we're at 32 kilohertz. That's crazy. You're only seeing one sample out of 32,000 or one sample out of 32 samples. So they shouldn't be smooth because we're logging at 1 kilohertz, even though you're flying at 32 kilohertz. If you're getting them to the point they're smooth, your feel is going to be numb. It's not going to fly as good. You want them not to be crazy spiky, but they shouldn't be smooth if you look at them in the logs. I'm going to go over some logs and stuff later on another race, but this should give you a general idea of how to tune. The last thing here is gyro averaging. So we're running at 32 kilohertz. That means we're getting 32,000 samples a second. Betaflight, most people run at 8 kilohertz. So putting this at gyro averaging at 4 will fly more like 8 kilohertz. It basically averages out the noise, and that's how a gyro works. When you're at 8 kilohertz, well, one, they're putting the filters way higher, which is one of the reasons we don't like it, because we want the filtering turned off. But the other thing it does is it literally gets 4 samples and averages them together and then gives you that sample over time. So you're also getting latency there because it waits for 4 samples before it averages. The gyro averaging works a little different. It's a weighted average, so it's not latent. It uses the most recent average better. But if you notice a really noisy access, maybe adding a little bit of this might help smooth it out. So the RC12 tune, we had it at 4, which made y'all, which is already really fast acting, use more of an average to average out some noise. So that's what that does. I think this about summarizes everything. I don't know if anyone else has any questions, but hopefully this will give you guys a good brief synopsis of what everything is in the configurator. We're going to chop this up, put little videos for different things, hopefully. Maybe put text in there, put a video on YouTube if people have more questions. But that should summarize, hopefully answer a lot of people's questions, and hopefully I'm going to do a lot more of this stuff to answer more questions as well. I don't know if you guys have anything I haven't covered. But go ahead and ask any questions you might have about anything I went over. Someone said they tried Koopa and it never worked last time. Something we did recently, and actually this is a good thing I should go over right now, is we made it so it automatically upgrades here. Hold on one second. It automatically upgrades motors it doesn't have the firmware for. You guys may have saw the last video I did about deadweight time on 6S. So the deadweight time is how they name the firmware on ESCs. So some ESCs might come out with a deadweight time of 25, and we had the firmware for a deadweight time of 30. Before, it was kind of silly the way we did it. We just didn't upgrade your ESC. But if we have a 30 firmware and it's a 25, upgrading it that little 5 points actually is probably going to make it run better. And it lets us upgrade ESCs we essentially didn't have in there. So the Emax ESCs, for example, had a deadweight time of 25, and now we put 30 in there. And so now we automatically upgrade to 30. Most ESCs, if we don't have it, they're just going to put the 30 firmware on there, which is safe for just about every ESC. So one thing about that is it allows you to use Coupa mode on ESCs, because you need our custom firmware, which is on our GitHub if anyone ever wants to screw with it, to run Coupa mode. It adds the dshot commands which you need, and I don't know the name of the person who originally put them in there, but it's in our GitHub, and we gave him credit there, hopefully. And his source code's there, and we did some slight modifications to merge it into our stuff. So that was a great job that he did, adding those dshot commands, which enabled the turtle mode and the Coupa modes to work in general. So, but without him adding that, we would not have this. So thanks for doing that for everyone's sake. So some things I'll go over, some changes we made. I mean, if you go on the beta page, you can see all the changes we made since 380, which are a good amount of fixes and stuff like that. But just to summarize, I mean, we fixed a lot of configurator things, we fixed the dshot things, we fixed Coupa modes, we fixed Tyrannus, we've changed some OSD stuff, which some people are going to start having. We fixed a lot of the LED modes, we fixed logging issues, we fixed other logging bugs we found. We added the RC12 tune, we changed a bunch of different things in the configurator. We really optimized the crap out of code, like a lot of stuff wasn't happening like it should. We've removed features in there. We've removed features in there that weren't really doing anything or weren't working very well. We've renamed stuff to make it work better. We changed the KI logic. We did some stuff to fix spectrum telemetry to run at 32 kilohertz, which it wasn't. We fixed telemetry to work properly with Tyrannus because it wasn't working. So we added some crossfire RSSI and some other stuff in there. In general, we've been trying to fix and add everything we can think of as quickly as possible. Someone asked if they could set OSD to work on TX3 on a millivolt. If it's not working that way, let me know, and we can try and make that work. I don't know if that's going to be an issue. Someone asked when version 1's coming out. Hopefully soon. It's up to you guys to test this and find our bugs to get us to the point where we're version 1. Because as of right now, I'm pretty confident with this firmware. I think we're really close to being able to release this as our official release. But I need you guys to test and let us know if there are problems with it. Yeah, it's Coupa, like the Koopa Turtles in Mario Brothers. Yeah, like that, and it stands for quad upright something. I don't know, but yeah, that's what we're going for. Someone asked if dshot is okay to use at 32 kilohertz. I think dshot, it might lower the kilohertz to 16, dshot 1200 to sync better with the dshot signal. But dshot 1200 does work just fine. I was flying it. I still recommend multi-shot. It still doesn't seem smoother to me. It seems noisier. You can tell it loses some data. If you're running dshot and you hear that sound, like, but faster, it kind of makes sounds like a pigeon. That's you losing packets. And that's one of the reasons we're not a big fan of dshot, but we do support it. I mean, it's not up to us to decide what you want to run. It's up for us to hopefully support everything we can, and that's what we're doing now. Someone asked, the configurator doesn't allow it to. I think that's just has to do with the way the dshot signal is sent. It's very intensive. The way the dshot signal works is it sends like 12 pulses. I don't know offhand. I have to look it up. For every piece of data, multi-shot sends 1. So receiving those pulses and sending those pulses is 12 times more work for the flight controller and for the ESC. So that's why dshot loses packets as well. So that's one of the reasons we think multi-shot's better. Now, we have ESCs coming with hopefully digital protocols that are on true digital buses that won't have these issues. But for now, go ahead and try dshot 1200. If you like it better, great. I'm just happy you like it better. If you like multi-shot better, run that. Like I said, it's really your choice, and we're just trying to make sure everything's supported the best we can. Someone's asking about current sensors and stuff. We'll try and check all that out and make sure they're all correct and give you guys help with that stuff. The Lua scripts we're working on. We're actually doing some cool things with them. So hopefully the Tyrannus Lua stuff will be the next on our list of working really well and working very quickly. Someone said they can't get the Hobby Wing X-Rotor 4-in-1 to work. Upgrade to this latest version. I think the new updates for the ESC code will fix that. It's mostly because the firmware couldn't be updated, and now we should auto-update it regardless, as long as there's a similar firmware in there. I'm not sure about when the next Revolt's going to come out. We're testing it now. We do a lot of testing here, so we'll build a prototype. We'll test it really well. If we find problems, we're going to fix it and test it again. One of the reasons we didn't rush the OSD is not only was the code not ready, but we didn't think the hardware was to a point where it was ready either. A lot of other brand boards, we've noticed that people really hype them, they really love them, and then 30 days later, everyone's like, don't run that board, it catches on fire, or they just die, and that's what we try and avoid with the Revolt. This board right here, I don't know what I did with it. This board right here that everyone's running, that people know it as the version 3, is really the version 12, because we are constantly improving this board to make it better and better. So anything we release after this with the OSD better be a lot better, or it's not worth us releasing. We want to make sure this is the most stable thing you get. We want to make it the most bulletproof because we want to stand behind it. If we launched a bunch of boards and everyone's died after 30 days, we would feel pretty darn guilty and do our best to replace them all. So it's important that we make it as good as possible so that doesn't happen. Living on the cutting edge is something we do in this hobby, but it's something that we can minimize by testing it as well as we can in-house, and that's what we're trying to do. The OSD actually does some cool stuff. I'll do another stream on that in the near future as we add more features and get your guys' feedback. So when the OSD board is here, then it works perfectly. And I do want to stress that the Piggy OSD and other OSD boards will give you the full OSD experience. You do have to connect one wire, but we use them as a dumb terminal, so it'll work the same as our OSD board. There'll be no difference between using it and using the OSD board in the end. So if you want OSD right away and you want to help us test, grab a minimum OSD to like $6. You can get the Piggy OSD, I think that's like $12. They all work great, and we can flash a custom firmware and you can do testing with us on all the new OSD code. I appreciate all the good comments, by the way, guys. I really do. Yeah, so someone's asking, I guess Preston said you're asking about hovering over the modes and it telling you what they are. It should do that right now. I'll show you how the help works, and it's important you guys learn how the help works because we're going to put more and more stuff in there. But if you go to this mode tab, you see there's a little question mark, and if you mouse over it, it will give you a description of what it does. We need to come on. So here you go. So I'm mousing over armed, and it gives a little pick the switch you want to arm with, and acro level, angle not limited, returns to level when sticks are centered. So this will give you a brief little description, and we're going to go more and more detailed in the help before we get to version 1. So hopefully everything you need will be in here. You can see there's some missing because they're newer modes. But in general, this you can get help that way. They're not on all the screens, but they're on some of them. What would you do? So like this one has one. This one's a little different help. If you click on it, it brings some help up with a little picture. So we have two different types of help depending on what it is. You can always click on it. If you click on this one, it actually brings up a huge page filled with information about reverse motor direction. So either mouse over, if it doesn't do anything, click on it to get the help, and we're going to hopefully add this for every single item in the configurator. Oh, Preston just turned on the sun. Apparently the batteries died. That's a little better. Okay, so let me see if there's any other question. Hopefully that answered Williams. And yeah, thanks. It's my wife's 20th wedding anniversary in ours, so I'm going to get this live stream done soon and actually go out to dinner or something. But thanks for wishing me happy anniversary. And someone asked about getting rid of bounce back and prop wash. Well, first of all, try the latest version. And if you're having any of that, try some RC smoothing and also raise your P or lower your P and raise your D. The default PID should go pretty well. Like, we're not having any bounce back issues at all. The auto KI and the new stuff in the defaults we did helped. So auto KI might help with the bounce back, which is the new mode. Also, if the smart KI and the smart curves on the TPA might help. So if you don't have that checked, I'll show you right where that is. When you go to your TPA, and you get your TPA by clicking show TPA here, you can enable these smart curves right here. And if you see, if I pick the new default tune, it enables these smart curves. These help maybe a little bit with your PIDs. These are basically cheats. If your TPA is close, it'll help home it in. Because we're only at 32 kilohertz, that allows us to do this. So in general, probably way faster to tune with these. You can turn them off and really spend some time tuning and maybe get a slightly better tune. But for most people, they're probably going to want those enabled. I don't know. Do you guys have any other questions? I'm reading the screen, so sorry about the pause. Tony asked about inverted throttle. I don't know. You're going to have to make sure you're running the latest, and if you're still having the issue, contact one of us so we can see if we can figure it out. All right, so I guess that about summarizes it. Like and share our pages and all that good stuff. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube, because this will go up on the YouTube, and we're going to be putting lots and lots of stuff up there. Make sure you are joined our group, and make sure you've liked our page. We're trying to notify people of everything there. But if you have any questions, feel free to contact us. Use our Slack. It's great too. But everything else, hopefully this kind of covers some of the stuff, some of the questions people have been asking about everything. And if not, ask more questions. You can ask in the comments of the videos in the stream too, and we will try and answer them in the next video or respond as well. So thanks for everyone tuning in, and it was hopefully this was a good stream and helped you all out.